Okay, dokie. Okie dokie. We have another lore video as I continue to power through the end times. We are in the second to last book, and then I'm out of the end times. This is the Rise of the Horned Rat. Rise of the Horned Rat. It's a Skaven book. Now, I wear my bias on my sleeve. None of you will be shocked to know that I have a strong bias towards the Skaven books, the lore behind them. I really like it. And this might seem hypocritical because I am so critical of the Dark Elves. Because they have infinite numbers and all that stuff. Like the rant you've heard a million times, right? I'm always bitching about the Dark Elves numbers. And then Skaven have literally infinite numbers, like more than the plot could ever make sense for how much the Skaven backstab each other. I know they spawn very quickly, but also this book definitely has as many Skaven as you need at any point in time, right? And that would normally be the complaint. But here's the thing before I talk about this book. The Skaven books are never written seriously. Like, the Dark Elves, for example, are like, oh, we're so good, we're so mighty, we're amazing, we're the badass. And, like, the reader is meant to know they're badasses, and they're meant to be the strongest of the strong and the baddest of the bad, and, like, all this stuff. But then the text doesn't show them being that, right? The text shows them being chaff. Like, Dark Elves just getting slain left and right by high elves. Like, they're jobbers, they're chumps. They just are there to make the heroes of the Dark Elves look good or the heroes of the high elves look good, but Dark Elves themselves aren't scary. Now in the Skaven books, that's never the point, right? Like, the Skavens say they're mighty, but the text, like, literally the narrator is like, but they're not, though. And when they get bodied in their thousands, the Skaven characters in their own heads are like, yeah, but I would win. All my brothers lose, but I would win. And then when push comes to shove, they run away, right? So it's like, the book isn't trying to tell you the Skaven are badass and then show them being piss ants like the Dark Elves. The book is telling you they're piss ants and then showing you that they suck. Like, it tracks. So I do have a different criteria when it comes to the book. Is I do rate a book based off of what they tell me to care about, not entirely what I care about, right? So if the elves want me to take them seriously, I'll take them seriously, and then I'll criticize them seriously. The Skaven books are usually just, let's have a good time, and then as long as I have a good time, I consider it a good book, right? So I will be a little more positive on this than the Elven books. I'll just wear that on my sleeve. My bias plus my different criteria for what this book is trying to elicit from me as far as emotions go. And I will just also say, this book is more successful than The Curse of Cain. Even with that different criteria, it's also just, like, a lot more fun, a lot better. Now, it's not all positive. I do have some complaints, but I'm noticing a pattern with these. The Curse, the Rise of Nagash was the first book we read together. It was good. It was good until the last second. It felt a bit rushed. It felt a bit rushed at the end, but it was pretty good. It was definitely the best of them that I had read until now. Then there was The Fall of Altdorf. And again, that was pretty good. Yeah, that was actually really good. I liked it a lot until the very end. If you remember my rant about Vlad, that's where it all just, like, fell off the shitter. So 2 books out of 2 were actually pretty good until we got to the end, and then they felt really, really rushed. It just all of a sudden fell apart because the author was like, I have to end this now. Poof, done. The Curse of Cain was a disaster start to finish. I think it did some serious character assassination of a lot of the elven characters that you had grown to care about throughout the lore. And it just didn't make, like, any sense. Even if you don't listen to my complaint about, like, whether or not the book took itself seriously and all that stuff, it's like, I went through that video, but objectively stupid things happened all the time and ruined characters you used to like. That's not the case in this book. The Rise of the Horned Rat treats all of the characters in it. I'm thinking all the characters in it are consistent from what I saw in the previous things I read of them. I did read the Carrot Peaks Omnibus, which covers most of the characters in this book. I read all the Skaven books I could get access to. I've read tons of dwarf books, like so freaking many. And there's honestly not a lot of greenskin books I've read, so I guess that's the least I've read. But I did read Skarsnik's book. So the characters in this book are still the characters we've enjoyed before, which is already better than the Curse of Cain, because the guy who wrote the Curse of Cain fucking hates the elves. Like, I don't know why he just went out of his way to make every character you're supposed to care about just suck now. But this book doesn't do that. I will say, it falls back in with the other two, though, is this book was going great. I was honestly ready to say almost entirely positive things about it. And then I got to the end, and it again felt like this guy got an email or something. Who wrote this one? Guy Haley. Wow, this guy is actually Guy Haley. It's there. It feels like Guy Haley got an email from Games Workshop that was like, finish it now. And he's like, oh shit, okay, all this stuff happened. And it just ends. So that's a bit disappointing, but I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's get into it. I did like this one. I like this one a lot. So the book starts with the Council of 13 in disarray. They're trying to figure out what to do. They've made some progress in the human lands, but now they're starting to do the Skaven thing, where as soon as they succeed at something, they turn on each other, as they always do. And Grayseer Chrysalisk is the leader of the clan Scrutin, the Grayseer clan, and they're the most favored by the Horned Rat. And while these guys are all arguing, he tries to call them to order, and all of a sudden, a black cloud appears behind him, and the Horned Rat himself, like the actual Horned Rat, appears, grabs Chrysalisk, and eats him, and then fucks off. And that's a great way to start this book. So then it zooms out, and there's a shadow council of 13 vermin lords, which are greater demons of the Skaven, and they have their own council of 13, and almost all the vermin lords are from clans on the Earth Council of 13. So the Grayseer Soothnar, the greater demon of Clan Scrutin, was like, well, fuck. And the Shadow Council starts arguing about what to do. And in the end, what's that guy's name? Damn it, it's in here somewhere. I have a bunch of notes because there's a lot of names. But Screech Vermin King, the leader of the Shadow Council, chooses Thanquol to be his champion and to enact his plan. And that's kind of left as a cliffhanger. Now, this book is too complicated for me to do the through line of that, like, remember to the very end to announce that, but this is one of the things that fell apart at the end. The Thanquol arc goes literally nowhere. I don't know what the fucking point was, and maybe somebody, again, with Warhammer lore, it's all over the place, maybe someone's like, oh, there's a comic that comes out after this book where Thanquol matters, or maybe he matters in Lord of the End Times. But in this book, at the start, the Vermin Lords, the Greater Demon Council, picks Thanquol to be their, like, champion or the crux of their scheme. Then, like, 200 pages happens. Thanquol shows back up, which we'll get back into later, at the side of the Vermin Lord, and he's like, you've done well. And we haven't seen him do shit. Like, we haven't seen Thanquol do literally anything in this book. And he's like, you've done well. And Thanquol's like, thanks. And then he shows up on the last page. That's it for Thanquol. And I'm like, oh, this felt rushed. It felt like you, at the start of the book, you tried to set up something like Thanquol's going to be important later, and then he just never is. Like, you just, I don't know. It felt cut. It felt like a deleted scene in a movie. Like, why is this here? So, I don't know what that's about. But even though the Shadow Council of the Vermin Lords chose Thanquol, all of the Vermin Lords go and help their respective clans to try and take power anyway, because they're just as scheming and duplicitous as their mortal counterparts. And meanwhile, in the real world, of the Lords of Decay, which is the Council of 13 of the mortal guys, beneath the Shadow Lords, Lord Nodwell, the leader of Clan Moors, my favorite guy, talks to Queek. We'll get into that later too. I just remembered another thing I'm going to be mad about. He calls Queek from Carrick 8 Peaks and calls him into his office. And Lord Nodwell is just fucking badass. But in the other books so far that I've read, he's kind of like this off-screen menacing figure. But this book really lays it out that he's very chummy with Queek and kind of treats Queek like a beloved pet in a way. Because Nodwell has a bit of Skarsnik syndrome, which we'll get into Skarsnik later. But Lord Nodwell is very much like a human style general, and that kind of what makes Clan Moors interesting is they don't have the fancy technology of Scryer, they don't have the Molder monsters, they don't have anything. They just have lads, like so many lads. But they have a lot of discipline, and like Clan Moors Skaven are less likely to betray you, and that's like a superpower in Skaven society. We've talked about that in other videos. Well, it seems to come from the top down, because Lord Nodwell is actually like very invested in Queek and really wants Queek to succeed, but he's lamenting that Queek's an idiot. And Queek's like, I'm not stupid, and Lord Nodwell's like, you're cunning, but you're stupid. Like, or is it the other way around? I don't know. He's a fine general and he makes decent plans, but he's impatient and like doesn't know how to make alliances or doesn't know how to be diplomatic, so he ends up fucking himself over, and Nodwell's like, you're useful, but I can't make you much better. But anyway, I was gonna say Nodwell's like a human general in that he does less backstabbing than other Skaven. He actually like rewards people in his organization that get victories, whereas other Skaven backstab people who get victories because they're a threat. Like Lord Nodwell actually promotes skilled leadership, so Clan Moors has some of the most skilled leadership. It's Skaven leadership, so it's still garbage. But again, if you are more loyal or less garbage, you will get victories when you're fighting amoral garbage. You know what I mean? Like, so Nodwell takes Queek aside and he's like, Queek, you're getting old. I have this elixir of life that all the Council of 13 take to stay alive forever. I will give you some, and there's a spot on the council where Gracier Chrysalis got murdered by the Horned Rat himself. We are going to take all of the dwarf holds, and this will secure Clan Moors so much prestige that we'll get our second seat on the council, and I'm going to put you there, and you can live forever with this tonic. Allegedly, Nodwell is helping the other clans also. All the clans are supposed to take out a different dwarf hold, and then all the dwarves will die at the same time. And Nodwell is allegedly selling them soldiers, but those soldiers have secret orders from Nodwell to slow the other lords down, so Queek can go through, take each settlement like one by one by one. Like, you know, he'll take whatever Nodwell assigns him to quickly, and then he'll reinforce another Skaven lord that is struggling because Nodwell sabotaged him. Take that one too, look like a savior. Take over that guy's army because now he seems incompetent. Take your bigger army, aid the next guy who looks incompetent because Nodwell is sabotaging him, then capture the hold. And like in the end, it's like Queek will look like this big hero who took out the dwarves single-handedly, and it'll be hard for the council not to put him on the council with Nodwell. And then Moors has 2 seats. That's roughly the plan. Though Lord Nodwell, when he's talking to Queek, he seems very sad because he's like, I know you can't do it. I want you to do it. I want Clan Moors to have 2 seats. I want you to be at my side. I really like you. You make me laugh. You're so great, Queek, but like, this is just not your forte. Like, you don't do anything besides fight well, and even if you're on the Council of 13, you're gonna get murdered so fast because you just don't do intrigue. It's not even gonna be close. But he is very affectionate towards Queek, and Queek, like, in his own mind, not even just out loud and like, oh, he's lying, but like, he really wants Lord Nodwell to be proud of him. And it's kind of sweet, so I like that. It's kind of like Queek and Ska are super bros a little bit. He and Nodwell are buddies. It's much less intense than his broship with Ska, but it is just nice. It's nice to see some Skaven getting along. It makes them different. And something else I noted as I go through these books is Queek and Skarsnik are both kind of on the same plot line, which I guess could be a strong narrative thing. Like, maybe this whole book is about aging, whereas Belegar is dealing with the fall of the Dwarven Empire and it's just outlived its time. Queek and Skarsnik are both dealing with getting old in races that aren't used to aging. Like, Queek's 12, I think. Somewhere in here, but I think he's like 12 or 13. And that's pretty damn old for a Skaven. So he's starting to slow down and his bones hurt and shit. While Skarsnik is like 40, I think. And goblins don't usually live to 40. And we'll get to Skarsnik in a little bit, but he's like... He says... Now, he might be lying, but he's talking to the reader, so I don't know why he'd be lying to you. You know, he's talking to himself, and you're reading his thoughts, so it'd be a weird place to lie. But Skarsnik says he's the second biggest goblin behind Grom the Paunch. And greenskins are like trees, where the older they are, the bigger they are. They just kind of keep slowly growing. So I guess he's pretty fucking big. But yeah, they're both getting old. And Skarsnik doesn't seem to be getting old physically. Like, well, no, that was stupid. Retract that. Like, he is getting old physically, but greenskins age in a good way. So Skarsnik is getting more powerful. Queek is getting, like, tired and run down. But Skarsnik is getting mentally tired. So I suppose we'll get into him. The Skaven have kicked him out of Carrick 8 Peaks since we last saw him. Other greenskins are flocking to him from all over the world to hide from the end times. And at first he doesn't believe them that the end times are even happening. But as the book goes on, he slowly realizes it's true. Like plains orcs, savage orcs, black orcs from the Darklands are all streaming over to Carrick 8 Peaks with Skarsnik because they heard he has like a hold. Like that's the thing is other greenskin tribes are just tribes. They wander around and they loot shit. And when they're eventually defeated or their leader dies or something, they disperse back out into the wastes. But they're very much foraging. Skarsnik was the one of two, which Gorfang Rockgut is dead at this point. So Skarsnik's now the only living greenskin lord that people know had a fortress. Like he had a place with walls and a door. And it was Carrick 8 Peaks. And they're like, well, listen, if the world's ending, we can go find that Gobbo Skarsnik, and he can shut them big doors, and maybe we'll live. Problem is Skarsnik got kicked out at 8 Peaks. So he's getting this mass army that really are scared and want to hide somewhere. And he's getting ready to try and retake 8 Peaks. Where is there other Skarsnik stuff later? I don't know. If there is, I'll skip it because I'm just going to keep talking about Skarsnik. So Skarsnik's setup is interesting. It's not executed well towards the end, but again, we'll get there when we get there. Skarsnik is having a bit of Throg syndrome, which I realized as I was reading it that they did the same plot line in two different books, but Throg the Troll King was increasingly depressed because he was the only smart troll. He was one of a kind. And he had no one to talk to, because every other troll he would try and relate to would literally just drool and stare at him. But he would, like, read books and read poetry. Skarsnik has an office set up with, like, maps and papers, and he's the only fucking guy who knows how to read. And not, like, that's the difference in it, is, like, the other greenskins around him literally don't know how to read, and he knows how to read, but also how to plan, how to strategize maps, how to put together reports and organization, like, and he's 40 years old, so he's had 40 years of hanging around with dipshits, and he's, like, just really tired of it, and I don't know, he's kind of losing the will to, like, fight, because he's like, what am I fighting for? There's always more rats, there's always more stuff. I can't be king of 8 Peaks, because there's more and more rats coming in every day. Maybe with this big wall I'm building up, I can take back 8 Peaks and get a home, but what's the point? Like, it's just me and Gobla, and I love Gobla, his giant squig. I love Gobla, but Gobla also can't fucking read, so what are we doing? And all of his advisors that hang out with him just, like, piss him off to no end because they keep being stupid. Where he's like, well, we got to wait for the forces from the east. And then his advisors look to each other like, boss, which way is east? And he's just like, God fucking damn it. Why? Why are you people so stupid? So, yeah. The only advisor he still really likes is Duff Skull, and I fucking love Duff Skull. Duff Skull is a Night Goblin shaman who's just hilarious. This isn't a lore video about him or anything, so just real quick, he's this little gobbo that is constantly on mushrooms or beer and is a very powerful caster, but is also quite mischievous, but he's like unerringly loyal to Skarsnik. So when I say mischievous, it's more like pranks and silliness, not backstabbing and whatever. So I think he's older than Skarsnik, actually, because he was old when Skarsnik was making his come up, so old as shit. So that's Skarsnik's little setup. Meanwhile, Soothnar, the Vermin Lord, one of those great demons, went to a Gracier Cranscrit, who's going to be Queek's counterpart in this book. He's a Grey Seer, who's trying to get their spot on the Council of 13 back because they lost it when, you know, the Horned Rat ate their leader. Soothnar tells the Grey Seer to go help Queek, quote unquote, but it's actually all a trap to, like, undermine Queek and Nodwell's plan for Queek to take all of the dwarf holds. Transcrit's supposed to slow Queek down so other clans can get some shit done. Meanwhile, Ikit blows up, out of Carrick 8 peaks, I think he blows up 2.5 of the mountains. So out of the 8 peaks of Carrick 8 peaks, 2.5 of them are flat out gone. And Belgar Ironhammer's on the surface and he watches his mountains blow up and he's like, huh, that is not good at all. Now you might have noticed we haven't really mentioned Belgar. Not too much has happened, honestly. He is just kind of moping around on the surface. You can see Skarsnik's settlement in the distance, but both he and Skarsnik are on the surface. So at the start of the book, the Skaven have all of fucking Carrick 8 peaks. And he has a little flashback that Thorgrim Grudgebearer asked all of the dwarves to come to Karazakarak so they could make one big army and at least try and fight their way out. Maybe go help the humans. And pretty much all of the dwarves said fuck off and all went back to their homes to individually die. So Belgar's like, huh, maybe I should have gone to Karazakarak. Well, too late for that. But really, that's all he's done. This book is ostensibly about the 3 lords of Carrick 8 peaks, but like Belgar gets 10% of the screen time. Like, it's not even close. So I haven't mentioned him because he hasn't fucking done anything. Anyway, Lurklocks, a different vermin lord, this one of Clan Eshin, helps Queek, which seems a little odd, but maybe there's more to it. I don't know. We'll reminisce at the end. But I suspected at the time that he was helping Queek because Clan Eshin doesn't really have a horse in this race. Clan Eshin's not exactly a war-type clan. Like, they have a couple clan rats, but they mostly just take contracts and do assassination stuff. They're not as big on taking entire holds. So, I guess he just wants to influence who joins the Shadow, who wants to join the Council. Then he doesn't want it to be, I don't know, the Grey Seers. Don't know, but Lurklocks is going to help Queek, and he's actually constantly in this book, so good for him. Belgar Ironhammer does hire Golgfag Maneater. He says Golgfag can have his choice of anything from the King's Treasury, and he's trying to, like, keep it secret that the King's Treasury is fucking empty because Belgar is broke. So Golgfag is going to come help him out. In this book, oh yeah, I wrote a note to, like, give this book a compliment. This book makes the dwarves the bad guys, but it's very subtle. Whereas, like, you remember in The Curse of Cain, where they wanted Tyrion to be the bad guy. I disagree with even wanting Tyrion to be the bad guy, but if that's your premise, very well. They did it so horribly where they just hit you over the head with Tyrion's the bad guy now and didn't build it up like at all. It wasn't deserved. It's just like the book started and Tyrion was an asshole and that was it. And then the whole book was just Tyrion being an asshole. It was not subtle. It wasn't built up. It just happened. This one is quite nice. They want the dwarves to actually be the bad guys, where not like the global good and evil bad guys, but like the narrative bad guys. You're rooting for Queek in a way. You kind of want him to win his race against time. You kind of want him to get the potion that keeps him young. You kind of want him to beat back the ravages of time because he's just like sad. And you kind of feel that, you feel that mortality a little bit where you're like, I get it. Like, I get that aging sucks and whatever. And Queek's pretty scared by it. So, yeah, like, anyway, he's a protagonist in a way. You kind of get Skarsnik's angle where you're like, he's kind of the greenskins of this part of the world's last hope to get anywhere before the end times eat them up. And they just want to, like, get into Carrick 8 Peaks and find somewhere to hunker down. And, he's sympathetic with, like, the whole being lonely and stuff, so like you get it. The dwarves are kind of set up to be the antagonists in this book, and this book does it at least very, very subtly, where when the dwarves are on screen and talking, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of stubbornness, but it's jacked up to 11, and they even start accidentally murdering each other. Like Queen Kemma, Belagar's wife, is trying to sneak out with their son and go to Karazakarak where they might be safe because she knows that they're gonna all die there. And Belgar sends some agents after her, and the agents like accidentally kill her bodyguard trying to get her back. Like, he wasn't trying to fight them, he was just trying to like, I don't know, he was like, brothers, we don't need to do this, and he reached out and touched one of their arms, and the other one like freaked out and like hit him in the head with a hammer because he was panicking, and accidentally killed him. But like, they don't stop and bury him, they just like leave him there and drag him back, and Queen Kemma is thinking to herself like how far the dwarves have fallen. Like, it's subtle. And again, you may not like the decision to make the dwarves the bad guys, and that's a viable thing to not be happy about. But I do like that at least they did this in a believable way, not just like, Tyrion's an asshole now, but it's this slow, like, the dwarves have been pressed out of Carrick 8 Peaks for like 100 years. They've been fighting this slowly losing war. They're constantly running out of men. And now the world seems to be ending, and they get called back by their high king. So they're split between their oaths to their high king and their regular king. And now they need to go get the queen, who they also have an oath to. So they're stuck between 3 oaths, and they just want to get this person back. And then in a moment of frustration, they wanted to like knock this guy away, but they swung too hard and broke his head open. And it's just like, fuck, like, you understand their frustration, you understand how they got there, and even though they're not good guys anymore, they're suicidal fools that are gonna die on a sinking ship instead of have a chance to save their race if they band together. Like, they're fools, but they're understandable fools. So yeah, I really liked that writing. That was just great writing there. Lord Nodwell has been throwing half-hearted assassination attempts at Queek. He allegedly always does this to try and keep Queek sharp, but this is where the book starts to like get a little shaky. Like, things have been good till this point, but I don't know. Nodwell is trying to assassinate Queek because he doesn't think Queek is good enough to be on the council, so he doesn't think he's actually the best right-hand man, so he's gonna kill him off. But the assassination attempts are half-hearted because he likes Queek and wants Queek to survive them, is like what the book is telling you to believe. And we'll get more into that later, but just kind of put that in your cap. Queek somehow can read minds now, but he mind reads a betrayal from a top general and knocks him out, and that was who Nodwell wanted to actually lead the assault after Queek died from the assassination attempt. So, Queek's still using his cool mind powers. Cranskrit, that Grey Seer from earlier, goes to Skarsnik and convinces Skarsnik to help him. He lets Skarsnik think that Skarsnik's going to betray the Grey Seer, where the Grey Seer offered, I will dig tunnels for you to surprise ambush Queek. And Skarsnik thinks, I'm going to steal the Skaven tunnelers, and I can make me own tunnels. I can do what I want. Cranskrit was fine with that. He left the diggers very unguarded because he didn't really care. He just wants Skarsnik to get in there. So Cranskrit is trying to not join the fight. So when Queek sieges Belegar, Skarsnik will flank him. There will be a big 3-way fight, and if Queek starts to lose, Cranskrit can join the fight and look like the hero. Because remember, this is all about... For the Skaven, this is literally all about a publicity stunt to get someone on the Council of 13. Queek is supposed to rampage through, take all the dwarf holds, and get the seat. Grey Seer Cranskrit has to save Queek. He's pretty much just doing the Clan Moor's plan, but for Clan Scruton, the Grey Seers. So it's the same plan. There's a big, super awesome, amazing battle. Skarsnik got to Goldfag Maneater and offered him all the money. He offered all the money in Belegar's treasury instead of half, and he has Belegar's crown for some reason from previous in the Carrick 8 Peaks saga. So Goldfag's like, sure, I'll take double the money and a crown. There's a big battle that's super awesome. Queek leads from the front with his red guard to get to Belegar, but they have these 2 Hellpit abominations that are also causing a bunch of problems for the dwarves, and the dwarves look like they're going to be overrun, but it was all a trap, and Belegar signals for Goldfag Maneater to charge in from the side, and a whole bunch of ogres come pouring out of this side cavern, and they're rampaging through the Skaven. Mournfang cavalry's running through these guys. It's really awesome. And the Skaven start to break. So Queek does what he always does when stuff starts to go to shit, and he just picks the enemy lord, and he sprints at him and tries to win. So he goes and duels Belegar. There's actually a really cool duel between these two. I liked it a lot. It shows Belegar is very restrained and defensive, and he has like nearly impossible defenses to get through, and Queek is super fast. Like, this book makes Queek actually look really dangerous. In the Headtaker book, Queek was relatively dangerous compared to dwarves, but it felt like most heroes would beat him up. This book has, like, Belegar is apparently the best fighting lord besides Ungrim, and Queek is better than him, I guess. But they have a pretty cool fight. Queek ends up getting a nice shot at his side as Belagar hits Queek in the shoulder. So Queek impales Belagar's side, but he suffers like a broken arm. Overall, Queek wins, but like doesn't get to kill Belagar, has to retreat because the ogres are successful in pushing back the Skaven. And as the dwarves think about reforming their lines, Skarsnik appears. So there's routing Skaven that Skarsnik shows up in the middle of, and all these greenskins pour out of these holes and just start massacring Skaven. And Queek looks over like, what the fuck? And Skarsnik's Prada, that little two blast projectile spell he has in Warhammer, apparently it's pretty much warp lightning from the Skaven, but he just shoots it out. And like, it's alluded to in the book that he is way supercharged due to the end times. So he's just like firing out like a warp lightning Gatling gun from his Prada and annihilating Skaven and dwarves alike across the battlefield. Greenskins are pouring over them, and then just then, Golgfag switches sides because of the deal with Skarsnik. So Greenskins show up, start bodying Skaven. Ogres turn around and start bodying dwarves. Greenskins also start bodying dwarves, and Belagar and Queek are both shit out of luck. They just get completely massacred. Skarsnik gives a fun little speech that I liked a lot, and Queek gets so pissed off that he tries to rally. It's not nearly enough. Like, he gets a couple clan rats and Skaven slaves to help him out, but he gets pushed back. Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, the ROR dwarf unit, is a side character in this book, and they are super awesome. They are awesome possum. I love the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. They are hilarious. At one point, they're holding this side area in like the hold, and they're just very funny as they kill like thousands of Skaven, but they lose 2 Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. They're like, man, what a fucked up day. We're getting rusty. And it's just hilarious. I don't know. They're great. So they're super diminished from trying to hold the Skaven off forever throughout the war. And now in this battle, they just kind of get assigned to protect some cannons because they're so depleted. There's only like 10 of them left. Well, when the ogres switched on them, they charged Norgrimlings 2 or 3 times. And with 10 Norgrimlings Ironbreakers, they pushed back 3 or 4 ogre offensives. Not just like one ogre, but like ogres trying to rally and charge up at them. So now when there's only 3 left, Golgfag Maneater and his bodyguard themselves come over and beat the piss out of these 3 Norgrimlings, but Golgfag's just like, fucking die! And I don't know, I haven't got to experience Golgfag enough, but like, I've only seen him in this book. But he's also pretty cool. So like, I love all the characters in this book so far. Like, they're all badass in their own way. They're all very fun. I don't hate any of them. I want them all to succeed. But Golgfag is just kind of lamenting the battle has to happen at all. He's just like, oh, this is so chaotic and stupid. Nobody has battle lines. Nobody has any tactics. Everybody's just running at each other. Like, this shit sucks. Whatever. I did my job. I'm leaving. And he starts to leave, and one of the ogres goes, boss, this one's still alive! And there's a Norgrimling's Ironbreaker that's alive. The last one. And Golgfag's like, it's not my problem. And the dwarf starts to stand up, and Golgfag goes over to him and points a pistol at his face and says, listen, you got 2 options. Either keep trying to get up and kill my guys, and that's not going to work at all. I think your spine is shattered. Or lay down, play dead. When the battle's over, go home. I don't care. I can shoot you either way. And the dwarf kind of just like glowers at him, but doesn't get up anymore. And Golgfag's like, good choice, and walks off with his ogre buddies. So the ogres feel like they did their job, and they leave the fight that is increasingly turning to chaos. Not like the faction chaos. Chaos like the concept. Okay. So Cranskrit appears, that Grayseer. He shows up, betrays Skarsnik, as we all knew he would, and routs all the goblins, with a vermin lord next to him that really helped him turn the tide. Like, whenever anybody got close to him, the vermin lord appeared and just like stared them down, and they just froze in terror from a fucking greater demon lurking behind what they were going to attack. So he looks like a big old hero, and the Skaven all cheer, but they cheer for Cranskrit and not Queek. It's mentioned that Thoric Ironbrow and Cazador Dragon Tamer die at Karak Azul, so Karak Azul has fallen. So already the Clan Morris plan isn't really working because Karak Azul fell while Karak 8 Peak still stands. So Queek's here, he's not getting the credit for Karak Azul. Cranskrit's getting the credit for Karak 8 Peaks too, so everything's kind of going to shit for Queek. Lurklocks, that Skaven, Eshin Vermin Lord, that was helping Queek. He and Queek have an amazing dialogue. And when I wrote this note to myself, I thought it was going to be the best dialogue of the book, but actually Skarsnik and Lurklox have a better one later. And that's spoilers. Do you want to be like, Skarsnik talks to Lurklox? Yeah, they do. And it's fucking awesome. But, yeah, Lurklox is saying that, like, oh shit, I have it pulled open. Page 406. I noted it, so there must be something specific I wanted to talk about in it. 415, 406. All right. So Lurklox shows up, and he's a greater demon, right? And he says, Queek, you're being a bit of an asshat, and you need to shut up and listen to me. I think you are wary of Deathmaster Snitch. You could maybe kill him. You could probably... Yeah, okay, wait, sorry. Yet one perhaps, and one as talented as you in kill-slaying might best him in open combat. Yes, yes. That would be a good fine match to watch. But I am not the Deathmaster. I am Lurklox, the greatest Skaven assassin ever to be pupped in Skavendom. In my mortal years, my name alone could stop a Ratkin's heart. In open battle, you would stand no chance against me, and I am the immortal chosen of the Horned Rat himself. You could never beat me. Oh, I know you smell, think of it, that a part of you wishes to try. Against lesser vermin lords, you might even triumph. He goes on to say that it wouldn't work against him because Lurklox wouldn't just walk up to his face. He would kill him while he's sleeping. But that's the part I wanted to read. Did a fucking greater demon of the Horned Rat just admit that Queek could beat vermin lords? What the fuck? That was insane. And my little Queek fanboy heart was like, holy fuck. I'll take that. I'll take that to the bank. Queek's the best, baby. Queek's amazing. I will say that wasn't shown in any of the books until now. This book all of a sudden made Queek very, very good at fighting. Like, he's always been good. He's always been good. But, like, in some of the other books, he fights, like, an unnamed dwarf thane. Well, not unnamed, but in the book, they name him just so he can die. Like, he'll fight a dwarf thane, and it'll be kind of close, and the dwarf thane will get a couple hits in on him, but Queek will win, right? That doesn't translate to beating a vermin lord to me. And in this book, like, Belagar and him are even, which, again, I think is a step up from his abilities in the non-End Times books. So, again, I want to be a fanboy and just celebrate this, but it also doesn't really track from what I was shown of Queek until now. It feels like in this book, they powered Queek up significantly without really earning it. So I will take a small L there, but it is very funny to me that apparently canonically one of the vermin lords goes, yeah, Queek, you're better than a lot of vermin lords I know. Like, Jesus, man. Anyway, as for the rest of this conversation, Queek just shows that he's actually really smart. Again, I don't know whether it's cunning or intelligence, which one he has, but he has one, not the other. But Lurklox starts to tell him a plan of how to beat the Greyseers at their own game. And Queek goes, yeah, I know. Cranskrit's trying to betray me so that he can get the spot on the council, so he looks like the big hero, but I'm not going to let him be the big hero because I have my own schemes, and I know how to do this. I've been doing this for a long time. And Lurklox kind of stares at him and goes, oh. Okay. Well, very well then, and he leaves. Then Nick Claw shows up and just kind of pisses on Queek. It's really funny. He, like, shows up and he's like, I heard you're struggling. And Queek's like, I'm not. And Nick is like, whatever, nerd. I'll win you this battle. So Ikit was apparently the one that defeated Karak Azul and killed Thorek Ironbrow and Khazar Dragon Tamer. He allied with Clan Rictus, so that's a double annoyance for Queek. He doesn't particularly like Ikit, and then Clan Rictus is Mor's direct rival, so they took out Karak Azul. Queek ignores Lurklox's plan to deal with the Greyseers and just goes to kill Skarsnik himself, leading a bunch of armies up to go fight the Greenskins. And then we get to see Storm Fiends, and Storm Fiends are awesome. Some of them have like flamethrowers, some of them have drills for hands, some of them have giant spinning blades. That's great. So Storm Fiends are currently burning their way through 8 Peaks gates and like setting dwarves on fire. That's pretty dope. They mostly came with Ikit and Clan Rictus, so Queek's getting a little upstage. He's not having a good time. Oh, Skarsnik. So we get another clip of Skarsnik. He and Duff Skull are planning their next move, and he knows Queek's going to come for him because he's been around Queek long enough to know that Belagar is too weak, so Queek's going to try and take out Skarsnik, who's stronger first, instead of going for Belagar, who's weak, and then having Skarsnik flank him, right? Because he's not as worried about the dwarves flanking him while he fights Skarsnik. Because remember, sorry, I say because remember a lot. I need to stop doing that. Belagar and Skarsnik are both on the surface. So when Queek comes up from the surface, these two armies can see each other. So he would rather be flanked by beleaguered and a small force of dwarves than be flanked while the dwarves are on their walls. Skarsnik crushes him from behind. So Skarsnik and Duff Skull are talking about what to do, and Duff Skull has a fun idea. So Duff Skull hikes out across the mountains over to where Gorgfang Rockgut used to hang out, and he gets a fucking rogue idol. And he drives the rogue idol like it's some kind of mecha in a mecha anime. He's inside it. And he just drives it back, parks it in the middle of a town square to make it look like a statue. Like, make it look like a dwarven statue that the greenskins drew on or something. But he makes it look inconspicuous. And then Skarsnik abandons his little shanty town that his boys were living in, and he backs off. So when the Skaven bust through the lower gates to get outside, they charge into this previously greenskin town. It's now empty, and they just crowd around. They're like, what the fuck? Okay, so while they start to filter out and like look for the greenskins, they're all walking around the rogue idol, but it's, just a statue, so they don't think anything of it. And then Skarsnik blows some horns, and a big old ambush comes in, and the rogue idol all of a sudden wakes up and just starts slamming fools as Duff Skull is laughing his ass off. It's hilarious. And I love Duff Skull. I love Skarsnik. I love everybody in this book, which is why I'm having such a great time with it. Queek again shows that he's a super badass by easily killing this Black Orc Big Boss we were introduced to briefly. And the Black Orc Big Boss was like, Skarsnik, you a big stupid kid. And Skarsnik's like, okay, you want to go fight Queek? Because I'll let you. And he's like, yeah, I'll go kill him, and then I'll kill you. And Skarsnik's like, trust me, dude, if you kill Queek, you can have my job. And Queek, like, one-taps this guy. He's charging at him on this, like, big Chaos Dwarf Rhino thing, where it's like, it's a machine. It's not an animal at all. And this Black Orc's riding this Robo Rhino towards Queek, and Queek just, like, jumps past him, stabs Dwarf Gouger into the side of this Black Orc's neck, and keeps walking, and the Black Orc just fucking dies. And Queek actually gets to show he's a bit of a badass. He commands his whole army. He actually gives orders to like his lieutenants as he looks out over the battlefield trying to figure out where he should be. But in the meantime, he's like, have these guys move up, have these guys shoot this, actually do this, which again is seeing a bit of that smart Queek that I like. Queek in his book had this like, he was super overconfident. He charged some dwarves. He didn't really do any generaling, and then he lost a battle. After that, he blamed some lesser Skaven, got them executed, and then got serious. So now you're seeing like serious Queek again, which I like. So he's showing why he's considered the best general in Skavendom, even though it's a low bar. That's awesome. Duff Skull also casts Foot of Gork and Fists of Gork. Wait, Fists of Mork? Fists of Gork? I forget, but he's casting orc spells, and even the book is like, yeah, Duff Skull's a super badass because he can cast orc spells as a goblin, which normally you can't do. But it's also kind of setting up that he's drawing way too much power and having too much fun. And in the end, he sees Kranskrit, that Grey Seer. He's going to go duel him. But Kranskrit uses some spells and takes out the Rogue Idol's foot. And then when it tries to step down, it crashes to the ground. So the Rogue Idol gets blown up by Kranskrit. Duff Skull comes out of it. They get in a brief spell duel, and Duff Skull bodies his ass. He bodies Kranskrit pretty hard, and Kranskrit's going to die. And then Duff Skull picks him up, and he could squeeze him to death. But he's like, nah, I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna take this madcap shroom. It's gonna make me even more powerful, and then I'm gonna torture you right good and make you die big time. So he takes this mushroom. When he could have won, he could have just snuffed the life out of Kranskrit right there. But he wanted to kill him harder. So he takes a madcap shroom, which is an old goblin shaman that died and became a mushroom. So he gets that goblin shaman's power. So now he's already capping out on too much power, and then he doubles it. And his head explodes. Like his head literally explodes. He just says uh-oh and explodes. He says uh-oh and explodes. That's the kind of book we're dealing with here. It's not taking itself too seriously, and I love it. So Cranskrit stands up, brushes off his robes, and goes, I'm the better mage! I did it! And everyone around him's like, wow, Cranskrit, you're such a good mage. We thought you were fucked. And he's like, yeah, I exploded his head. I did that. So Duff Skull dies, and he's one of my favorite goblin characters. So that was sad, but like he went out in a very believable way. It's like, yeah, he would die. Meanwhile, Queek realizes his forces are on the verge of routing, so he needs to figure out how to get away at Greenskins to rout, because Queek has fought Greenskins for a long time. He knows if you take out their leader, they'll rout. So he charges over towards this wyvern with an orc warboss on it, and 1v1s it. But 1v2s, I guess, because it's an orc warboss and a wyvern. He fucking charges a wyvern, and he starts kicking its ass. It's awesome. He's fighting this orc warboss and this wyvern. He's parrying both of their attacks and like diving around them. He eventually stabs his dwarf gouger into the neck of the wyvern and tears its fucking head off. And then the orc warboss is like, what? And on his way to the ground, as he's falling out of the mount, he gets impaled on dwarf gouger, and Queek's like, fuck you. And then all the greenskins on that flank completely fall apart, and Queek's army has a route to retreat to if they need it. And it's so badass. But on the other side, Skarsnik gets charged by a bunch of storm vermin, and he's awesome. He's fighting this like he's fighting this contingent force of Queek's, like, not Lieutenant Scott, it's a different lieutenant that was set up. That, like, again, Lord Nodwell is trying to get him to replace Queek, but he's not really, and we'll get more into that later. So Skarsnik's fighting this other named storm vermin character, and a lot of storm vermin. And it's revealed that he is super strong. Like, he takes off his little robe thing, and apparently he is jacked out of his fucking mind. Like, think Captain America. Like, just jacked. He's still a goblin. Like, he's short, but he is rolling in muscle. And he's, like, bodying all these storm vermin. Gobla is eating stuff alongside him, and a Molder leader who's leading the rat ogres and stuff of Queek's army, Grutus, charges in. Gobla eats him whole, and then Skarsnik finishes killing some storm vermin, routs them off, and as he's going back to do more generaling stuff, Gobla starts to make weird noises. And Skarsnik looks over at him, and a knife bursts out of Gobla's head, and Grutus, like, claws his way out of Gobla, but he's like half bone, half skin, because Gobla's stomach acids are so freaking powerful that even a Molder corrupted Skaven with like Throt style regeneration can't keep up with it. So he just kind of falls apart into bones and pus as he climbs out of Gobla, but Gobla fucking dies. And Skarsnik loses his shit. Like, he's so sad, he just stands there crying, and he doesn't even know what tears are, so he's like, what are these things on my face? I don't understand, my eyes are leaking. And other greenskins are walking up to him like, Skarsnik, what do we do? He's like, I don't know. I don't care. Gobla's dead. So, Lurklocks, again, in case you don't remember, the Vermin Lord that's helping Queek, he tries to turn the battle around by showing up and murdering a whole bunch of Arachnarok spiders, and he decimates an entire Forest Goblin Spider Rider unit that was coming up and over a flank, because their spiders can climb mountains super easily, so Lurklocks just runs through them and kills 2 different Arachnaroks. That's awesome. Skarsnik on his way back to his base, because they're retreating at that point. After Gobla died, Skarsnik kind of lost the will to fight, and his greenskins were falling back, and he starts to get really depressed because, I mean, he was already not feeling great coming into this book, and now Gobla's dead, so he lost his best friend and his guardian, and he just lost a battle with all of his Wa. He was still outnumbered by the Skaven 10-1, and his ambush, he still lost the battle, just because there were so many Skaven. It's like, he's like, I played better, I strategized better, I fought better, my boys fought better, and we lost just because there's so fucking many of them. Jesus. So he realizes there's no way he can get back into Carrick 8 Peaks, so he can't get a home, and the Greenskins kind of get despondent because that was their last place to hide as the end times are coming for them. So the Greenskin camp's pretty sad. Lurklox shows up to Skarsnik. He follows him off the battlefield and shows up in Skarsnik's bedroom. And Skarsnik at first is a little scared, but then he mans up and he starts shouting at Lurklox. And this is the best interaction of the whole book. It made me laugh out loud at work while I was reading this. And Skarsnik is just bitching out Lurklox like, what do you want? Why are you in my room, you stupid ratty fuck? I'm in here. I'm doing my thing. Don't make me step you with me, Prodder. And he's holding up the Prodder and like waving it at him. And Lurklox is a little concerned about the Prodder. He looks at it. He's like, that is supercharged due to the end times. I don't want to get stabbed by that or shot with its lightning. But he's like, don't you fear me, little one? And Skarsnik goes, no, I've killed one of you before. And he points at the wall, and there's the skull of a vermin lord. And Lurklox in the book, like, again, I'm not paraphrasing. I paraphrase a lot, but this part I'm not paraphrasing. He stammers, and he's like, what the, what? Okay. And he completely loses his train of thought. And Skarsnik's like, you sound stupid. And Lurklox is like, all right, so, Jesus, man, I came to make a deal, but now, you've killed a vermin lord before? And Skarsnik's like, yeah. And I'm like, when did this happen? Obviously, before the book, during the, 40-year-long war for Carrick 8 Peaks, but, when did Queek have a vermin lord at his disposal? He apparently threw it at Skarsnik and it fucking died? Okay. So Skarsnik's apparently killed a vermin lord, so, this book establishes that Queek could probably kill a vermin lord according to a vermin lord, and Skarsnik already did. Are vermin lords just chumps, or have these guys been power leveling like fucking Goku off screen while we weren't looking? Because they're way more badass now. Oh my god. So Lurklox comes in with a deal and he goes, listen, Queek's not listening to me, no one's listening to me. I got a guy to do a thing. So if you fuck off, if you just admit surrender and leave, Queek can easily body Belegar. I will give you a nuclear bomb, a Doomsphere, one of Ickett's things. I will give you a Doomsphere I stole from Ickett if you just leave. And Skarsnik goes, where am I going to go? And Lurklox informs him that Zufbar, the Dwarven fortress, it would be a good place for him to reside out of his way. Skarsnik kind of questions this. He's like, one, I know you're not going to backstab me. How do you know I'm not going to backstab you? Have you talked to Queek? I'm not a very trustworthy guy. And Lurklox goes, I know. You remind me a lot of the Skaven. And Skarsnik takes great offense at that, but they move on. So Skarsnik counter-proposes and he says, I get the head of Belegar Ironhammer for my collection. I won't allow Queek to add it to his trophy rack just because I know it'll piss him off. If you can guarantee get me that head, I'll leave with your little nuclear bomb. And Lurklox's like, yeah, fuck it, deal. Belegar is dying. From his wound from Queek, it's not healing as it should be. And a lot of his dwarves are noticing it. He orders all of his best troops to flee with the remaining civilians, and a lot of them go. Queek charges into the fortress that's now barely defended. Slams Belegar pretty easily, though Belegar actually beats him up okay before dying. Gets a couple punches in, hits him with the hammer once or twice. So he did his best, but Queek kills Belegar and does have to give over Belegar's head to Skarsnik because Lurklox informed him of the deal and said, listen, if you don't take this deal, I'll kill you myself. And Queek's like, fine. Because he's also getting pressure from Ickett Claw, he's getting pressure from Cranskrit, he's getting pressure from Lurklox and Lord Nodwell. Everyone is like, give the head to Skarsnik, take Carrick 8 Peaks, and move on. We have other things to do. So, he acquiesces. Skarsnik tries to blow up Carrick 8 Peaks with his bomb. It doesn't work. It just like fizzles out. So that makes him even more depressed. But he takes Belegar's head and he wanders off. He admits they're not going to Zufbar because he knows the Skaven wanted him to go fight Zufbar, so it'd be easier for them when they got there. He's no idiot. So he's just going to go his own way and not go anywhere the Skaven want him to go. But then he wanders off, and that's the end of Skarsnik in this book. And this is where it starts to go really downhill. Is like Skarsnik wandering off depressed is whatever. If that's the ending you want to have for him, I guess that's the ending you have for him. Sure. Maybe he shows up in the next book. That's fine. After this point is where stuff starts to kind of get like dumb. So Skarsnik's not in the story anymore, so I guess he didn't do anything dumb. Screech Vermin King, the biggest vermin lord that was hanging out with Thanquil. He meets Thanquil in Nuln under the Empire City and gets him to take over the siege of Nuln. That is the last we ever hear of that. We get teleported to Nuln as viewers, which has not been in this story at all. And he's like, Thanquil, all these Skaven trying to take Nuln are shitters. I'm gonna show up. So he does pretty much what the Horned Rat did at the very start with Chrysalis. He shows up to the Nuln Council of Warriors and goes, you're all fucking up. Listen to Thanquil or I'll murder you. And they're going, that was a vermin lord. Yes, okay, we'll listen to Thanquil. And then that's it. We never go back to Nuln again. We presume Thanquil wins off screen, but that was pointless. So, don't know what they're doing with Thanquil, but it's clear in the last 10 seconds of this book they wanted to force him back in. Well, it's not 10 seconds, but it's getting there. A vermin lord leads a Skaven assault against Kereza Karak, where Thorgrim and the last of the dwarves are holding out. 3 years have passed since the book started. And a vermin lord breaks through the first gates of Kereza Karak, and Thorgrim, Grudgebearer, leads a small defense force and kills it. So now Thorgrim kills a vermin lord, which, yeah, Belagar is dead, but it's funny how in this book, there are now... Skarsnik has killed a vermin lord. Queek maybe could, and Thorgrim does. So it's like, all right, vermin lords are just dropping left and right in this, I guess. The vermin lords of the Shadow Council, not the lesser vermin lords, meet with Thanquil to discuss the end. So now Thanquil is a part of the Shadow Council of the 13 vermin lords. They kind of ignore him, but he's there. So 3 years passed. All of the holds for the dwarves are dead except for Kereza Karak. Queek is now super old. Like, his fur is mostly gray. He has patches where it's just skin. His eyesight is completely fucked. His joints all hurt and everything sucks. Planet Pestilence allegedly died in Lustria as the lizardmen were leaving the planet. Ikit died... No, Ikit didn't die, sorry. Ikit took down Carrick Kadrin, so now Ungrim Ironfist is MIA. But Queek's heads are failing him now. They all just kind of scream constantly. They don't make words anymore. They're just a wall of noise that follows him around. And in the final siege, Thorgrim Grudgebearer finally rides out. He doesn't want to sit behind his walls anymore and wait for the end of times. But he also opened the sacred dwarven vaults of, like, magic weapons, because the dwarves had I understand it culturally, but, like, tactically an idiotic practice of whenever a dwarf had a, like, masterful magic weapon, when they died, they'd take it with them to their graves, and then it's like, all right, well, now you have dwarves carrying fucking iron axes as their race is dying, and you have a pile of super magic, amazing god-tier weapons sitting beneath you that you won't access. So Thorgrim finally busts those out, and he's like, just everybody take one. So every dwarf warrior, every basic bitch in Thorgrim's army is carrying something, like, close to the level of Gal Miraz. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but now you're starting to get my point. So these dwarves are bodying the Skaven. Like, they are tearing through them, and Queek goes, this is not good. He does what he always does when things start to look bad, and he charges Thorgrim. While he does, Ungrim Ironfist and the last of his Slayers, and then Bugman of Bugman's Rangers show up behind the Skaven army and charge downhill. Ungrim is now possessed by a fire spirit. Now, I have meta-knowledge, and I know that the lore of fire chose him as their incarnate, but that isn't presented in this book at all. And it's just like, yeah, Ungrim's just on fire, and every time he swings, a giant inferno shows up, and you're like, that's okay, that feels sudden. And this is all happening in like 3 pages, so it's just not explained at all. But Queek finally gets to Thorgrim Grudgebearer, who steps off his throne of power. And the entire duel that this whole book has been leading up to is Queek jumps in the air, swings Dwarf Gouger at Thorgrim. Thorgrim blocks it with his magic weapon, shattering Dwarf Gouger. Like, it just shatters, and then he picks Queek up with his hands and strangles him to death. I don't know. It's like, I'm trying not to be biased. The biased side of me wanted Queek to go out fighting like a badass. He should lose to Thorgrim near the throne of, well, okay, actually, when Thorgrim's on the throne of power, Queek should lose pretty badly. Off the throne of power, Queek should actually beat him because Belugar is a better fighter than Thorgrim, but Thorgrim has the throne of power, which super buffs you. But he stepped off of it. But there was this rune of Azamar, which like was made by Grugni, one of the first runes ever made, and it super empowered Thorgrim even when he was off his throne. So he was like god tier for a bit, and that's why he just strangled Queek to death. And then the rune shatters, and Thorgrim feels really tired and shitty. But I don't know. It felt odd, like to have the duel end in just one sword swing. Dwarf Gouger breaks and he gets strangled to death, and that's it. It was very anticlimactic, which I can see that being a way they wanted to go. I don't know if I love Skarsnik and Queek both having the plot line of being old and depressed and both having anticlimactic endings, because it feels like Skarsnik's message was sometimes things don't work out for the hero. And again, hero in a loose term. But like, even his backstat, even though he lost, his final hurrah, accepting his defeat but blowing up the mountains he had to abandon, the Doom Sphere didn't work, it didn't go off, and he got nothing, and he left depressed. That's fine. But to have that twice in the same story, in the case of like 10 pages, between Queek also just being too old to get anything done and getting strangled to death by Thorgrim super easily, it's like, I don't know. It just kind of, it's like, oh, I guess I don't get a resolution at all. There was no build up. There was no final fight. You know what I mean? The final fight was limp. So you're like, what? Oh, this didn't build up to anything. The dwarves just rode out and killed all the Skaven. Like, they killed all of them. And this game of routing, and instead of this game of routing, they still outnumber the dwarves 500-1, but seeing Queek die, and Ikit Claw dies to Ungrim off screen. Like, it just says, Ungrim killed Ikit. But, like, you didn't get a fight. So 2 legendary lords of the Skaven just fucking died without a fight. Now, if you wanted Queek to be the depressing, like, he's too old, he's in over his head, that thing, that's fine. But then why don't we cut away to Ikit fighting Ungrim and, like, falling back, shooting his warp fire thrower at Ungrim, and Ungrim's the incarnate of fire, so he takes even this corrupted fire and he just pushes it away easily, and he's like, that won't work on me, fiend. You blew up my house. Like, you blew up Carrick Kadrin, something I was sworn to defend, and I already had the Slayer's Oath, so I already feel all this pain and stuff, and you made me also fail my oath as a king. You've taken everything from me, Ikit Claw, and I will tear you limb from limb. And Ikit's like, I've got some schemes of my own, falls back, casts like warp lightning from his little thing, and shoots warp pistols at Ungrim, but the bullets are just deflecting off him. And then Ikit gets, finds his doom wheel and manages to power it up as Ungrim is like cleaving through clan rats that Ikit threw at him, and he runs over Ungrim, and he's like, aha, I did it, I ran him over, and he looks back and Ungrim's not on the ground. He's like, where the fuck? And all of a sudden, like, sparks are flying. He goes, what the hell? And Ungrim's hacking his way through the ceiling, reaching through, like, grabs the top of Ikit Claw's mask and slightly starts to tear it off, as it's like it's grafted to Ikit's flesh, so it's like peeling off his fucking face, and he's like, ah, fuck, and like maybe blasts a bunch of warp flame into Ungrim's face, but like, even though the fire won't hurt him, maybe the projectile is enough to push him off the doom wheel, and he falls to the ground. But in the panic or whatever, Ikit barely gets his face on. He can't see because the skin of his face is peeled up over his eyes, so he can't see very well, and he plunges the doom wheel into the mountain, and in a big fiery crash he falls to the ground, and he hears Ungrim's steps coming towards him, but he can't fucking see, so he gets onto like his knees and just starts firing his warp pistol wherever he thinks he hears the bullets, wherever he thinks he hears Ungrim coming from, and the first 5 shots out of 6 hit nothing, and the last one hits like a plink, and he hears the armor, and he knows where Ungrim is, and he aims up at Ungrim's face, but now he's out of shots. He just clicks an empty warp pistol as Ungrim comes up and says, not this time, crushes the thing in his hands, and then cleaves off Ikit Claw's head. Isn't that so much fucking better? Isn't that the fucking ending we deserve? Like, a Skaven versus a Dwarven legendary lord battling it out to the very end, and Ungrim comes out on top? Nothing changed about your story from what I just proposed. But we get a fight. That didn't happen. Like, I made that all up. Ikit dies off screen in one sentence. It says, Ungrim managed to kill Ikit Claw. That's it. Why was this so rushed? Like, the rest of the book, up until Skarsnik leaves, is fine. It's solid. I have some minor complaints that we'll get into now, but then it's just they just had to end it. Like, they were on. This was incredibly rushed. Like, I made that up as I was talking to you, by the way. I didn't write that down. That was just off the fucking cuff. Why did Ikit have to die in one sentence? That wouldn't have taken that long to write, the way I said it, and it would give you a satisfying end to the Skaven's siege here. Give you a satisfying end to Ikit Claw. I mean, Queek didn't have a satisfying end, but you could use that as like a his time is over kind of thing. Like, I don't know, but it was just, there was no resolution with Skarsnik. He was just sad. There was no resolution with Queek. He was too old. There's no resolution with Ikit because he wasn't the main character of this book. And it's like, oh, okay. Yes. So remember, I made that up. There hasn't been a resolution yet. So the dwarves push back the Skaven. Ikit and Queek are dead. All the Skaven at the front gate are repelled, and Thorgrim, Bugman, and Ungrim return to Karazak-Harak, and they talk about some stuff. Bugman shares a drink with Thorgrim. It's very emotional, as the dwarves are probably seeing their last, and they know it. But they were glad they had one last charge. Thorgrim climbs the stairs, these big stairs towards this tall tower that goes above Karazak-Harak, which is the tallest mountain in the Dwarven realm. So it's like this place where only a king can go, and they look out over the entire world. Now it flashes to Thanquol, and we're at the very, very end of the book. It flashes to Thanquol hanging out with Screech Vermin King, and Screech Vermin King goes, "Hey, see Thorgrim? Yeah, he's about to die. When he dies, Clan Eshin will get you the head. You'll present the head, and you'll get on the Council of 13. I have told you literally everything Thanquol has done in this book. He got chosen by the Shadow Council, the Vermin Lords. He was already in Nuln at a different point, and then Screech Vermin King showed up and put him in command by, like, threatening all the other Skaven at Nuln. And now we're here at the end of the book. Thanquol's done nothing. Like, why is he getting picked to be the Council of 13 guy? If you didn't know anything about Thanquol, or what happens in future books, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the Lord of the End Times has for Thanquol in it. But this book has done nothing to build up what it started with. It started with the Vermin Lords being like, Thanquol is the one. The one to do what? He hasn't shown up in this fucking book at all. And at the end, he's just going to be the winner? But he didn't do any, like, and I know the Vermin Lords picked him, and he doesn't have to do anything, but, like, it's not from like an audience perspective. It's just so lazy, where it's like, why doesn't he have to kill Thorgrim, or like, why doesn't he have to ambush the Eshin assassins? Like, maybe Screech Vermin King again do the same exact thing you're about to do, and you're like, these Eshin assassins think that they can come in at the 11th hour, take Thorgrim's head, and present it to the Council of 13 to prove their worth, and then Eshin gets a second seat. I'm going to send you here. So after they kill Thorgrim, you kill them, because your magic won't work on the dwarf, but their knives will. But your magic will work on them, and their knives will be useless. Take the head from them, take it to the Council of 13, say you did it yourself. Right? Like, that's something. But no, Eshin is apparently in league with the Vermin Lord, and this was all part of, like, Screech Vermin King and Lurklox's plan or something to get Queek to eventually die, and Eshin would just hand Thanquol Thorgrim's head. I don't know. It's not great. It's not great. So Thanquol watches as Deathmaster Snitch is just sitting on the roof of the tallest tower in the world, and Thorgrim Grudgebearer comes outside, leaves the door open, which as he's about to die, spoilers, but like as he's dying, he goes, "No, I left the door open. Fuck." Anyway. So Thorgrim didn't close the door behind him like he should have. Deathmaster Stitch is just sitting on the tallest tower in the world, and the Skaven say, "Oh yeah, he's been waiting for Thorgrim." Questions, maybe some of them have answers, but the point isn't that these questions don't have answers. The point is that they're not in the book. Like, the things I'm about to complain about, you might be able to be like, well, Deathmaster Stitch has a magical cloak that keeps him warm. Why aren't we shown that? Like, but whatever. I'll get there. So Deathmaster Snitch, ahead of time, before Thorgrim rode out and bodied Queek's army, and Ungrim flanked, and Bugman flanked. So Queek's assault was going to work unless all that happened. Deathmaster Snitch climbed the tallest tower in the world by himself. No one saw that happening. I mean, he's sneaky. I get that. But, like, we didn't get a paragraph or an allusion to Deathmaster put one claw in front of the other. This was awful business climbing the cold things. The sun. He hated the sun. He preferred the shadows. But vermin lords must not be denied. And then he keeps climbing and you move on as like a quick little teaser. Oh, what's he climbing? What's going on? No, he's just fucking up there. Like, if Queek's plan had worked, were you just gonna leave him on the roof forever? Was he just gonna be up there forever? Being like, guys, vermin lords, you said Thorgrim would come up here. So did the vermin lords fucking know that Ungrim was gonna flank Queek and win? Like, they can see the future that Queek's gonna lose? And if so, like, why not just have Deathmaster Snitch? Oh yeah, I forgot that part. So there was a total fucking fake out. But I can't go back to that part, but I will in a second, but we'll get back to that. So there was a fake out that they also knew about where they could have just had Deathmaster Snitch actually be there on the battlefield, actually kill Thorgrim, and actually just take the head there, and then the Skaven Assault would win. They'd take Karazakrak. Deathmaster Snitch would still have the head, and he could still just give it to Thanquol. There was no point to send him to the top of the world, because as he jumps down and plunges his knives straight through Thorgrim's Grudgebear's chest, he has magical knives that Lurklocks made for him, the Vermin Lord of Eshin, that can get through Thorgrim's star armor. Because on the battlefield, when Queek died, an Eshin assassin jumped out, flew through the air, and all of the dwarves were like, oh, fuck! And the reader's like, oh, fuck! And I was like, I thought he died in a tower somewhere, I heard from spoilers. Why is he going to die in the battlefield? Because that's an Eshin assassin flying at him. And the Eshin assassin stabs him with the blades, but they break on the star armor, do no damage, and then the assassin gets pushed off and killed by the hammers. I'm like, wait, what? Why wasn't that just Snitch then? Like, literally, no one got in his way. The assassin landed on him. His knives just weren't good enough. Why, if you could see the future, why wasn't the plan just have that be Snitch? Why did you send him in the middle of fucking nowhere? Why did you let a whole siege fail if you were just gonna do this anyway? Fuck, man. So Snitch just kills Thorgrim while he's not looking, and then hundreds of gutter runners show up and jump in the open door, and it's like alleged that they're gonna sneak into the hold of Karazakrak and open the doors from the inside and let the Skaven in. Hey, how did hundreds of gutter runners get up here? Did they also climb the tallest tower in the world? Also, question, did the dwarves just leave the tallest tower in the world in the open? Spoilers, shit in this universe can fly. Like, what the fuck? There's no runes defending this place? There's nothing? So if the king goes up to his favorite lookout spot, a dark elf with an eagle could just, like, they fucking hate the elves. An elf with an eagle could just fly up here and put one in his brain, and there's nothing to defend him? You have no runes of negation up here that could push. Like, anybody coming from a direction that's not inside gets pushed off by a force and they fall to their death. You got nothing. So all of fucking Clan Eshin can just climb the tallest tower in the world, wait for Thorgrim to open the door, body his ass and get inside. It's not even a skill that only Deathmaster Snitch could pull off. A bunch of fucking gutter runners did it too. Why? Why do the dwarves have this open ass door? Like, okay, the door was closed and Thorgrim opened it and that's how they got in, but like, couldn't you just stand there and goon his ass? Like, Thorgrim opens the door, and 100 fucking gutter runners are staring at him, body his ass, or even just run past him. Like, yeah, every dwarf king ever opens that door with axe and shield in hand, waiting, and if he opens the door and he sees a bunch of Clan Eshin assassins, he's just gonna shut it real quick. He's gonna be fine. No! No! Dwarves come up here in their fucking pajamas! Why? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so rushed. Like, it didn't have to happen. It makes the Vermin Lord look like idiots. It makes Thanquol just a jobber and a piece of shit. It makes Deathmaster Snitch, like, appear random and dumb. And it makes, like, Queek's whole siege worthless. It's just stupid. It was just really, really dumb. Like, I hate it. And also, question, like, if you wanted to have Deathmatch Snitch up there, again, why didn't we get a different thing where, like, let's say we have that earlier one where it's like, he's the climbing one I did, where it's just a little illusion, it's just a paragraph, you wonder where he's climbing to, you wonder what he's doing. And then you have another one of him sitting at the top in the freezing fucking cold for apparently a day. He's sitting on the tallest peak, on the tallest tower, on the tallest peak. Do you know how fucking cold it is? Do you know how fucking cold it is up there? He's dead. All his gutter runners are dead. They can't survive that cold for that long, which is, again, you can explain that away by saying he has, like, a magical cloak from lore clocks, or, like, Eshin magic, where, like, oh, the cloaks of Eshin are made to withstand poison and heat and snow and all these things. Yeah, but tell me that. Don't just have him up here and then I have to figure everything out myself. But you could have, like, this little illusion of, like, Snitch hated the cold, but he could wait. He was great at waiting. He stared down at the door, waiting for it to open. It would. He knew it would. The masters never lie. Or something like that. Like, again, what door is he waiting outside? What's going on? And then when you see Thorgrim, and you know the book's ending, and he's getting closer to the door, and you're like, oh, door! Oh, Snitch! Oh, fuck! And you can see it coming, and you can be like, oh, no, don't open the door, and Thorgrim's lost in his thoughts. This part's real. I'm making the rest of that up, but, like, this part's real. As Thorgrim's walking the door, he's like, the dwarves are finished, our empire's ruined, how long can we last? Maybe 1 year, maybe 100, but in the span of dwarves, that's not a lot of time. We're finished. And you're like, Thorgrim, like, look up, do something. As Snitch is readying his blades, and he takes the leap, and Thorgrim looks out, and he hears nothing as the Skaven plunges through his chest. You get none of that. You get Thorgrim just walking through the door being like, I'm sad. I've been stabbed. And he turns around and sees Deathmaster Snitch. Like, that's what you get. You get none of the buildup. You have none of the tension. It's just, Thorgrim is sad, and he dies. Queek is sad, and then he dies. Skarsnik is sad, and then he leaves. Ikeclaw isn't sad, but he just dies. Like, we don't get a resolution for anything. We don't get a duel for anything. The last duel we had was Queek versus Wounded Belegar, and Wounded Belegar, like, did well for being wounded, but he went out like a bitch. Like, the last real duel of this book was a third of the way into it with Queek versus Belegar. Maybe you could go with Duff Skull versus Cranskrit. That would be 2/3 of the way through the book. Maybe go with Queek versus the Wyvern and the Orc Warboss, who's unnamed. But as far as named characters that are participating in this drama, and this is a drama pretty much, you don't get any of the main characters resolving conflicts with each other, like, in a real way. Like, Thorgrim just strangles Queek, but there was no fight to it. He just did it because he was superpowered by a rune and just broke his fucking neck. Queek and Belegar didn't get to have a real knockdown, drag-out fight, because Queek kind of won the first one, but Belegar never healed, so the second one wasn't a real fight. Like, Skarsnik didn't get to fight any of the main characters. He fought a random Skaven that was introduced specifically to die to him and Gobla, but that guy kills Gobla, making Skarsnik more depressed. Like, I hope I'm getting across why this is infuriating to me, because we never had a full power versus full power fight to a resolution. And again, you could have the same result. I'm not arguing about the result. Like, Thorgrim can beat Queek. That's fine, but I wanted to see more than one fucking swing and then strangle him out. Like, have it be a long duel, and Thorgrim keeps reciting out grudges from the Great Book of Grudges. He's doing it by memory because he didn't have the book in front of him. And Queek is getting increasingly nervous as Thorgrim starts to grow brighter and brighter. As he rants off the Book of Grudges, the rune of Azamar grows in luster, and soon it's so blinding that Queek can't even fucking see. He's now starting to deflect Thorgrim entirely off instinct. He can't see anymore, and Thorgrim's strikes are getting harder and harder. Like, he's having troubles holding onto his weapon as one sword is knocked out of his hand, and the Dwarf Gouger is knocked out of his hand, and then Adobe Creative Cloud fucking updates, I guess. But, like, and then a hammer hits him in the chest, and he goes flying backwards, and as he expects the death blow to come, it doesn't come, and instead 2 fists lock around his neck and start squeezing him to death as he still hears all the Book of Grudges coming out. Like, that's better. Like, give him a fucking fight. And Thorgrim's just this unstoppable mountain of a dwarf who never tires and just whittles Queek down and literally crushes him like the mountains crush the landscape slowly over time. But, like, not just like, I don't know, I blocked one thing and Dwarf Gouger shattered and then I strangled you. End of the book. It's stupid. But anyway, Snitch kills Thorgrim, delivers the head to Thankful. Thankful joins the Council. 13. Book over. The other thing I kept, like, alluding I'd come back to is Nodwell. Nodwell got assassinated in this book, and it was really dumb. Now, Nodwell is a side character, and he is one of my favorites, so I took this more personally. But Nodwell was kind of handled about as well as Vlad von Karstein when he licked the Nurgle plague off his own sword and died because he's an idiot, or Malekith's entire arc, or Tyrion's entire arc. I honestly think Nodwell got it as bad. And he's a side character, which is why I left it for the end. This is the end. But let's review. Nodwell is one of the best generals Skavendom has ever produced. He's the best. He is known for his long-term strategies and his schemes. He teams up with Clan Scryer to try and get the seat for Clan Moors on the council to not let the Grey Seers come back. Because the deal with Clan Scryer was, you guys will be the most powerful magical people, because Pestilence fucking died. So Pestilence died to the Lizardmen and Lustria, so they're gone. If we don't let the Grey Seers back on the council, Clan Scryer is the only one with any connections to the Winds of Magic. If you help me with that, I'll get a seat on the council, right? So Moors gets 2 seats, and Scryer gets uncontested rule of magic for Skavendom. Okay. So he set all that up, and then that's how Ikit Claw was sent to help Queek try and keep pushing down fortresses. But Nodwell's constant assassination attempts of Queek slowed Queek down, and Ikit showing up also slowed Queek down, so that wasn't really, like, you're not committing to your plan of taking all these things quickly. Because you sent, like, Scryer sent Ikit and Rictus to take Karak Azul, and your plan was to have Queek go take that for Moors so you could get the glory, right? So it's like, okay, is Scryer your ally or not? And if they're not your ally, if they betrayed you for Rictus, do something about it. But he doesn't. Nodwell just, like, lets it happen. And he keeps kind of half-assed trying to assassinate Queek, but he doesn't commit. And it's like, okay, dude, like, what are you doing to this character? Does he have a plan to kill Queek and get someone more schemy, more capable for the Council of 13 and get on with it? Or are you going to have Queek keep killing your best generals? Because I said at the start of the video where, like, Nodwell promotes Skaven who are good at things. So he's wasting all this talent by feeding them slowly to Queek in these half-assed assassination attempts. So he's losing good generals, he's distracting Queek, and he's wasting time. It's like, dude, if either stick with Queek or don't, but pick one. And he tries to assassinate Queek like 4 or 5 times throughout the book, and none of them ever work. And I know someone might shout at me and say, he always does that. He always tries to assassinate Queek. Yeah, that's to keep Queek on his toes. His stated intention, and a demon that can read his mind, states that his intention is to kill Queek, have a better successor to rule on the Council of 13 by his side, but that he has too much sentimentality, so he's not committing to it. He's not putting his heart in it. And it's like, what? So Nodwell is also a stodgy old man just kind of stuck in nostalgia and gonna let his empire fall away because he's sad? Because he doesn't want to kill Queek? Is everybody in this book's resolution they're just sad so they die? Like, is that all we're doing now? I don't get it. And then in the end, Nodwell's whole plan fails, but not even because of the Vermin Lords, you could argue. The Vermin Lords showed up and gave the head to Thankwol to ruin Clan Scryer and Clan Moors' plan to get Clan Scrutin back on the council like they wanted. But Nodwell's fucking plan was gonna fail anyway. Like, Queek's assault on Kareza Karak failed. It took him 3 years. It was supposed to take a couple weeks to drop the Dwarven Empire. So Queek got way too fucking old. Where was Nodwell? Why, if Queek's stalling out this hard, it's taking him 3 fucking years, why didn't Nodwell send someone else to replace him? Why didn't he, like, rally the armies of Moors or whatever to, like, do something? I don't, just do something, not, like, sit around while Queek takes 3 years to do what was supposed to take two or 3 weeks, and you just kind of sit and you just go, ooh, I should get someone else, but oh, my special little boy, but oh, I don't want to do this, and oh, I don't want to do that, and he just sits there. And after the horrible defeat at Kareza Karak, and Eshin had to bail them out, and Thankwol's ascension to the Council of 13, Moors lost a ton of allies. Like, the kind of epilogue of the book just says that, like, Clan Moors was shattered. Oh yeah, because the Vermin Lords are talking about it. The foolish warlord clan of Clan Moors was no longer the favored on the council. They lost most of their power, and Lord Nodwell wouldn't be scheming as much anymore. Like, So Clan Moors crumbled around him while Nodwell just sat around for 3 years and did literally nothing. Just nothing. He just sat there. And again, like, I know I mentioned this before, and you might be like, well, how much could he do? When Clan Scryer, who's supposed to be his ally, teams up with Clan Rictus and takes Karak Azul out from under his nose, fucking do something. Break up the alliance or strike back or do anything. Don't just let Ikklaw ride around with Queek for the rest of his campaign. Or, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It just made Nodwell just a doddering old fool who sat around and hoped things worked out for him, which is the exact opposite of who he is. Like, I hope that kind of rant at the end explained. Now, the Nodwell stuff, to be fair, that was throughout the whole book kind of odd. And though the ending was a capstone on it, the Nodwell thing is the only thing through the whole book I thought was stupid. The rest of the stupid stuff was entirely concentrated in like the last 10%. And I don't know why the End Times books are this way, where it's like, the Fall of Altdorf, pretty good until the last 10%, and then it all falls apart. The Rise of Nagash, pretty good till the last 10%, then it's rushed as fuck. The Rise of the Horned Rat, pretty good until the last 10%, where it all fucking falls apart. It's annoying, and it's stupid. And honestly, the Elven books, if you didn't think they were assassinating all the characters horribly, let's say you liked the Elven book, even that, the last 10%, you have to admit, falls apart. Like, Malekith's armies are on the run. Nothing is working, so he goes to the Isle of the Dead, where there's the vortex, and he has to defend the vortex while Teclis does a final spell. Tyrion raises the elves that have died as zombies to attack Malekith's army, so Malekith raises the spirits of the elves and strikes back against their bodies. And then Tyrion and Malekith get in a duel. Malekith loses the duel, but Aletha Nar shows up and shoots Tyrion, so Malekith didn't have to win the duel. He's just the bestest boy anyway. Like, that's also a shit ending. Even if you liked what was going on for the elves until that point, which I would argue, no, that whole book was garbage. The last 10% of all these books has been complete ass. And I don't know why this one is too. I would argue this one is the least ass, but it's still not good. The last 10% is not good. The first 90% was actually great. I enjoyed a lot of this. I only had a great time reading The Rise of the Horned Rat until the end, and then it just fell apart. I don't know. This one's more of a tragedy because it was good. Because it was good till it fell apart. The other ones, take it or leave it. But this one was actually like, wow, this could be in my top 5 Warhammer books. Oh, fuck. Okay, never mind. On the whole, it was good. On the whole, I enjoyed myself. The Skaven fanboy in me got a lot of Skaven fanboying out. A lot of the characters I love for the Skaven acted like they would. It just kind of phoned it in at the end. But I had a ton of enjoyment. There's a lot of bias in there because I just love the Skaven so much. So I love reading about them. I think if you're an objective person, I think if you're not just a Skaven fanboy, this is probably as good as The Fall of Altdorf. So my writing quality purely, I would rank Rise of Nagash or Return of Nagash or whatever it was. Return of Nagash. Fall of Altdorf and The Rise of the Horned Rat are below it, but tied. And then Curse of Cain is last by a large margin. So far, I think this writing is on the level of Fall of Altdorf. It's just I enjoyed the factions in it more, and I really cared about the characters in this one, so... Yeah. Anyway, this video went on forever. Hopefully you enjoyed the rant as like a podcast or something at work. Have a good day. Roar. Subscribe, yes.